Hello friends, this is your friend back with a new fanfic. What if Sakura died and Naruto awakened his true power? Part 2. Grief sharpens resolve, power answers pain, and the world begins to tremble. If you like this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Now, let's start. Chapter 7. Enko led Naruto through the dango shop towards a table near the back. They both sat down across from each other. Naruto took this time to gaze around the little shop. It wasn't anything fancy, but it had its charms. When Naruto looked down at the table, he was surprised to see Enko's initials carved into it. He couldn't help the slight chuckle that escaped his lips when he saw this. "You really do spend a lot of time here, don't you?" Naruto asked as his eyes landed on Enko. "Well, hell yeah, this place has the best dango in the entire village," she said excitedly just as their waitress walked up. The woman spotted Enko and smiled, then asked what they wanted. "We'll have the usual," Enko replied, causing the waitress to nod and walk off. Enko turned and saw Naruto looking at her with a confused look. "Just trust me, you'll love it," she said, causing him to smile. When the waitress came back with their order, Naruto watched as Enko quickly started to eat her dango with a smile on her face. Naruto took a few test bites and he was surprised at how good it was. Eventually he was eating almost as fast as Enko was. After they finished eating, Enko ordered them some tea. Then they spent the next hour talking and telling stories. Naruto was at first embarrassed by Enko's brash and flirtatious behavior, but he quickly got used to it. He even started teasing her back. But as the date went on, Naruto had one question he needed to Enko. After a round of hearty laughter, Naruto decided to finally ask her. "Enko, this has been great. I haven't laughed this hard in a long time," Naruto said, causing Enko to smile at him. "That's good to hear, Gaki, I'm really trying here," Enko said as her smile turned to a grin. She was about to continue, but then she noticed his expression change. "But one thing has been kinda bothering me. I just want to know, what made you choose me?" Naruto asked, making Enko go wide-eyed for a moment. She was genuinely surprised by the question, but it was one she was expecting. With a sigh she stood up and offered him her hand. "Take my hand, and follow me." Naruto took her hand and she started leading him through the village. Along the way Naruto noticed that several people shot them strange looks. Looks he hadn't seen, since he was younger and still shunned by the village. Eventually Enko led him to the outskirts of the Forest of Death. Naruto shuddered slightly when unpleasant memories of the place flashed in his mind. Enko led him to an abandoned guard post. They both jumped onto the post's roof and sat down. The area was very secluded and offered them some privacy, a very rare thing in a shinobi village. With deep intake of breath Enko started speaking. "Naruto, you and me aren't so different," she said as she gazed into the sky. Naruto was surprised she hadn't called him Gaki, so he knew that this was serious. Deciding that silence was the best option, he kept his mouth shut. I was shunned and looked down upon by this village too. All because of this," Enko said as she pulled down the collar of her trench coat, revealing her curse mark. Naruto knew that Enko had received a curse mark, but he didn't know that the villagers shunned her. "It wasn't nearly as bad they treated you. But people would call me a snake whore, and give me these looks, the same looks they would give you," Enko said, pulling her collar back up and returning her gaze to the sky. "The shinobi were still kind to me, even though a couple gave me trouble. But I could barely go out in public without immediately being hassled by the villagers. That dango shop we were just at was one of the few shops that wouldn't kick me out. It was for me, like Ichiraku is for you. It was a place where I could go and not be judged, a place to go and be accepted." Naruto could hardly believe his ears. He was seething with anger, at the village he swore to protect. It was horrible to hear that another person was treated like her was. "After a while, I developed a mask that I could wear out in public. Kinda like the one I know you put on sometimes. I would act flirty and extravagant to help get my mind off the villagers. Eventually I started sleeping with various men, even women, just to feel something other than pain and loneliness. Any pleasure, no matter how short-lived it was very welcome." Enko continued as a few tears escaped her eyes. Naruto just sat there and soaked it all in. His heart slowly breaking as he heard Enko speak. "Then one day I saw you. I saw the way the villagers treated you, and suddenly I didn't feel as alone anymore. I saw you getting the same looks I would get, for something out of your control. I saw the loud and confident mask you would put on in public, but as soon as you'd be alone that mask would shatter. I wanted to help you, so you wouldn't have to bear the pain alone. Enko was now fully crying. She didn't try to fight the tears as she shook lightly. Then Enko stopped Bryfly, and took another deep breath trying to stop her shaking. She then turned to Naruto and grasped his hand tightly. There was a time where I actually considered adopting you, Enko said, making Naruto go wide-eyed. Kami, I was gonna do it. I was prepared to go to the Hokage, and demand that he let me adopt you. But then I realized that if I did adopt you it would only make our lives more difficult. If the villagers saw that the snake whore had adopted the demon child, they would have a field day. And I decided to watch over you from the shadows. It killed me to see you suffer those looks and taunts. I wanted nothing more than to walk up to you and hug you, to let you know that I understood your pain. Now Naruto was crying too. Enko's words had hit him right in his heart. I could have had a mother, someone to look after me. Someone to come home to every day. Kami, if my mother knew the way the villagers treated Enko and me, she would rise from the grave and beat every one of them. Naruto thought as he let tears flow from his eyes. Suddenly Naruto felt Enko wrap her arms around him, as she cried into his shoulder. Please forgive me Naruto, I can't be alone again. She cried as she tightly gripped the back of his orange jacket. Enko stopped crying when she felt Naruto cup her chin. She looked and saw that his face was just as tear-stained as hers. Enko-chan, you have nothing to apologize for, and I will never, and I mean never, leave you alone again. Naruto said with extreme passion as he crashed his lips against Enko's. Now Enko had been kissed many times before, during her many escapades. But the way Naruto kissed her blew her away. He kissed her with such raw passion and emotion that it took her breath away. Then Naruto surprised her by licking her bottom lip. She happily parted her lips, and instantly their tongues met and danced. They continued their liplock for a few more moments before the need for air made them separate. With a groan of annoyance she parted their lips, but she rested her forehead against his. Enko-chan, I promise you that if you stay with me that I'll never abandon you, and that you'll accept it with open arms. I love you Enko-chan. Naruto said as he leaned in and gave Enko a gentle and loving kiss. As soon as the kiss ended, Enko wrapped her arms around Naruto again, as tears of joy fell from her eyes. I love you too Naruto, thank you. She cried into his neck. They stayed like this for at least another hour, just holding each other and whispering sweet nothings to each other. Enko reluctantly got out of Naruto's arms and said that she had a few errands to run. Naruto gave her one last, lingering goodbye kiss before she left. As Naruto watched, with a smile, as Enko ran off, he was struck with a sudden realization. He had absolutely nothing to do now. Across the village, Sakura had just finished her shift at the hospital, and Kami did she need to blow off some steam. Karin had been annoying and badgering her all day long. If she stayed in the redhead's presence any longer she was gonna snap her neck. As Sakura walked through the village, she spotted Hinata walking towards her. Instantly a smile spread across her face, as she spotted her friend. Hey Hinata! Sakura yelled as she waved to the Hyuga. Hinata's head snapped towards the voice that was calling out to her. A small smile formed on her face when she saw Sakura. Hello Sakura, Hinata said happily as Sakura caught up to her. So I'm guessing your date with Naruto went well. Sakura said suddenly. Hinata's face instantly flushed bright red. Why yes, it was amazing. Hinata had managed to stutter out. Well, that's good to hear, Sakura said as a great way to blow off some steam came to mind. Hey Hinata, you wanna spar? I kinda have to blow off some steam. Plus it has been a while since I've had some decent practice. Hinata blinked at sudden question. She had nowhere else to go, and it too had been a while since she had been in a spar. Sure thing Sakura, Hinata said as Sakura started leading them towards the training fields. Eventually they found themselves on a random training field, just outside the village. The two stood on opposite sides of the clearing, and just stared at each other. Without a word they were both charging each other. Sakura went for powerful kicks and punches utilizing her chakra-enhanced strength. While Hinata went for precise and fast jabs using her Byakugan to see all of Sakura's movements. However, Tsunade's evasion training had paid off, and Sakura effortlessly dipped and dodged around Hinata's Jiyuken strikes. Hinata was dodging Sakura's attacks, but they were slowly but surely getting closer to striking her. As they continued to trade blows, Hinata made the mistake of trying to block one of Sakura's blows. She was sent flying across the field, and with a grunt she did a quick flip and landed on her feet. Hinata was panting heavily as she clutched her throbbing arm. She looked to see that Sakura was slightly winded, but she still looked like she could go for a while. This surprised Hinata, because she knew Sakura didn't exactly have the best stamina and would usually tire quickly. How is she moving so fast? It's as if she's speeding up. Also, how is she not tired yet? She looks she could still fight for a lot longer. Hinata thought as she activated her Byakugan. What she saw made her gasp. Sakura was feeling great. All her senses felt heightened. When she was fighting Hinata, it looked as if Hinata was moving in slow motion. Also, Sakura was surprised at how spry she still felt. Normally by now she'd be bent over in exhaustion. She was shaken from her thoughts when she saw Hinata activate her Byakugan and gasp. Hinata, what's wrong? Sakura asked, concerned she might have hurt Hinata. Sakura, your arm, Hinata said as she saw the red glow Sakura's arm was giving off. The glow seemed to be spreading throughout Sakura's chakra system. Sakura blinked and lifted her sleeve to see that the rings on her arm were slightly glowing. What are those? Hinata asked as she appeared next to Sakura. These are because of Naruto, Sakura said as Hinata poked the red and orange rings. I got them after we had Naruto bit into my neck, he said. Kurama told him to. Hinata again gasped, but this time for a different reason. What? She had with Naruto-kun. But I wanted to be his first. Well, if I can't be his first, I will definitely be his second. Hinata thought as she shot Sakura a jealous look. Hinata decided to get back to the topic on hand. Well, it seems that those rings have given you some of the Kyuubi's chakra. Hinata said as she again activated her Byakugan. She saw that the red chakra in Sakura's system was slowly starting to retreat back into the rings. Sakura went wide-eyed when she heard this. So that's why she wasn't tired, and everything seemed to be moving in slow motion. It was because she had some of Kurama's chakra in her. Sakura had to let Tsunade know right away. Hinata, we have to let Tsunade-sama know about this. Sakura said as she took off back towards the village with Hinata in tow. Naruto trudged aimlessly through the village streets with nowhere to go. He was officially bored out his mind. But luck shined upon Naruto, because he spotted Tenten walking out of a weapon shop just in front of him. He might as well ask her. Naruto thought as he ran to catch up to the weapon mistress. Hey Tenten, Naruto called out as he ran towards her. Tenten quickly spun around and grinned when she saw Naruto. Hey you knucklehead, she said, genuinely happy to see Naruto. How have you been, Tenten? Ah, I've been alright. I've been training with Lee and Neji a lot lately. Also, I've been visiting Guy-sensei at the hospital. Tenten said with a sad smile. How is he doing? Naruto said sadly as he thought of Guy. Oh, he's doing well, still spouting nonsense about his flames of youth never being extinguished, Tenten said with a sigh, but she was smiling. I can tell he's disappointed that he can't be a shinobi anymore, but he's making the best of it. Plus Lee is with him all the time trying to cheer him up. Well, that's bushy brows for you. Naruto said with a smile. Yeah, it is, Tenten said as she looked into Naruto's piercing blue eyes. Her brown eyes met his blue ones. She blushed slightly and looked away. I never thanked you for bringing Neji back and for saving Guy-sensei. You don't have to thank me, Tenten-chan. Naruto said with his usual grin. Tenten blushed even more when she heard him add the chan to her name. Yes, I do, Naruto. If I had lost Neji and Guy-sensei, I don't know what I would have done. Tenten said as she fought back tears. She wouldn't cry, especially in front of a Naruto. She was a tough woman, and she wouldn't look weak in front of him. Naruto saw this and he scowled a little. Tenten, just because you want to cry doesn't make you weak. Even the strongest woman needs to let out her emotions sometimes. Naruto said as he placed a hand on Tenten's shoulder. Tenten listened to Naruto's words, and they made sense to her. She let a few stray tears streak down her face, but she quickly wiped them away. Naruto may be right, but she didn't like to cry in front of others. Thanks Naruto, I needed that. Tenten said as she looked up at him and smiled. No problem Tenten, that's what friends are for. Naruto said with a smile. Yeah friends. Tenten said sadly. Seeing this Naruto decided to go for it. Hey Tenten, would you like to go out sometime? What, like a date? Tenten asked, surprised by his sudden request. Yeah, I'm free tomorrow. Maybe we could spar then hang out afterwards. Tenten thought for a moment. True, a part of her still liked Neji, but she knew that relationship likely wasn't going anywhere. Plus she had always had this silent admiration for Naruto. It had started after he defeated Neji in the Chunin exams. He was one of the few guys who truly caught her attention. She decided to throw caution to the wind, and just go with it. Sure thing Naruto, pick me up around 6 p.m. tomorrow. Tenten said with a big smile. Alright, it's a date. I'll see you tomorrow Tenten-chan. Naruto said as he took off down the street. Tenten watched Naruto run off, and a dreamy sigh escaped her lips. She knew tomorrow was gonna be amazing. Naruto now sat in Ichiraku for dinner waiting for his order to be prepared. He was a little disappointed that Ayame wasn't there, but Kyuki told him that she hadn't been feeling well lately. Naruto just sighed. He missed talking with his Nichan. He had briefly considered a relationship with her, but she was his sister in all but blood. It would have been weird dating her. As Naruto sat there he thought of the exhausting day he had. The entire day had been an emotional roller coaster. He had no idea what he was gonna do after he ate. He hadn't seen Sakura or Hinata all day, and Konan and Ryuuzetsu were both out on short missions. Naruto sighed as Kyuki placed his bowl in front of him. Kyuki wanted to talk to the boy, but he looked like he needed to be alone right now. Naruto was just about to start eating when he heard the flaps to the stand be pushed aside. He was gonna ignore whoever entered, but he was surprised to hear the person speak to him. There you are, I've been looking everywhere for you. Naruto spun around on his stool and was surprised to see Ino Yamanaka standing there. He was even more surprised to hear that she was looking for him. You were looking for me? Naruto asked as he pointed to himself. Well yeah, when I couldn't find you at your apartment or the training grounds. I knew you'd be here. Ino said as she took a seat next to him. Why were you looking for me? Naruto asked, honestly confused. Ino and him weren't exactly the closet of friends. But she was one of his precious people, and he cared deeply for her. It also helped that she was honestly one of the hottest kunoichi in the village. I have something I want to ask you. She asked as a blush spread across her face. Naruto was confused. Ino was usually very loud and direct. But to see her stuttering and blushing was very surprising. Sure Ino, you can ask me anything. Naruto said as he looked into her pale blue eyes. Ino took a deep breath to calm her nerves. Naruto, how would you like to go out on a date with me? Ino asked as she blushed furiously. That was the last thing Naruto was expecting to hear. What? Naruto asked, still a little shocked. I asked you, if you wanted to go on a date. Ino said a little more confidently this time. Naruto just stared at her for a moment. He honestly couldn't think of any reasons to not at least give her a chance. Sure thing Ino-chan, but I'm busy tomorrow. So how about the day after that? Naruto said with a smile. Ino's face lit up when he agreed. Thank you Naruto, that sounds great. Ino nearly yelled as she pulled him in for a hug. Naruto hugged her back, and inhaled her scent. She smelled of freshly picked flowers. Realizing that they were hugging slightly too long, Ino released Naruto as a fierce blush spread across her face. I'll see you soon Naruto. Ino stuttered out just before she bolted out of the stand towards her home. Naruto watched her leave with a smile on his face. He then turned back to his food and realized it was now cold. He quickly yelled for Kyuki to bring him a fresh bowl. Naruto just sighed as he waited for his ramen to be prepared. Kami, now I understand why Bachan drinks. Naruto muttered as he put his face in his hands. His life was gonna get real complicated, really soon. Chapter 8. Tsunade was sitting at her desk finishing the last of her paperwork for the day. She had sent Shizune home early, and was alone in her office. I've been working non-stop for the past week. Thank Kami I can finally retire soon. Tsunade thought as she eyed the drawer where she kept Hirasake. No, I need to focus, once I retire I can get drunk. As Tsunade got back to her paperwork, she heard a few knocks at the door. Enter. Tsunade yelled thinking it was Shizune coming back to check on her. Shisho, can we speak with you? Tsunade looked up and was surprised to see Sakura and Hinata standing in front of her desk. Oh Sakura, it's you. Sure, what do you want to talk about? Tsunade said as she smiled at her apprentice. Sakura looked at Hinata, and they nodded to each other. Sakura slowly lifted up her sleeve to show the 3 rings on her upper arm. So you got a tattoo? I didn't think you were the type, Sakura. Tsunade said with a smirk. It's not a tattoo, Tsunade-sama. Hinata said, surprising the blonde Hokage. What do you mean it's not a tattoo? Then what is it? Tsunade said as she stood up and walked over to Sakura. I think it's best for you explain this, Sakura. Hinata said as a slight blush crossed her face. Shisho, this is, a mate mark. Sakura said as her cheeks turned bright red. A what? Tsunade said in a slightly upset tone. It's a mate mark, I got it after Naruto and me, did it. Sakura said the last part in a quiet tone. That little bastard, he just couldn't keep it in his pants, could he? Tsunade sighed as sunk back into her seat. It wasn't Naruto's fault. Sakura said, surprising both Hinata and Tsunade. What? How is it not his fault? Tsunade said as she leaned forward. I seduced him, Sakura said, trying to avoid her master's gaze. Well, that truly is a surprise. Tsunade said with another smirk on her face. Tsunade then looked at Hinata. The poor girl looked as if she was gonna pass out any second. Well, I really doubt you came here just to tell me that you slept with Naruto. Tsunade said as she leaned back in her chair. Hearing this snapped Hinata out of her stupor. Hi Tsunade-sama. We were sparring earlier, and I noticed something strange when I activated my Byakugan. It appears that Sakura can access some of the Kyuubi's chakra through the mark on her arm. Hinata said, making Tsunade's eyes widen. Instantly Tsunade was on her feet, inspecting Sakura. Her hands glowed green, as she scanned through Sakura's vitals. She hovered her hands over Sakura's body, but when she came to the mark on her arm a chill ran down her spine. Yeah, there is definitely some of the Kyuubi's chakra in you, but except for that you seem, wait, hold on a second. Tsunade said as she hovered her hand over Sakura's stomach. What is it, Shisho? Sakura asked, confused at her master's sudden exclamation. Sakura, have you been feeling well lately? Tsunade questioned, looking Sakura in the eyes. I have been feeling a little sick the last few days, but what does that, you don't mean? Sakura said as her eyes widened in shock. Yes Sakura, you're pregnant, congratulations. Tsunade said with a smile on her face. Hinata's eyes shot open when she heard this. She turned to Sakura and watched as a flurry of emotions flashed through her features. Sakura started to hyperventilate as she placed her hand on a nearby chair to steady herself. Holy shit, how am I gonna tell Naruto? Are we ready to be parents? Fuck, I'm freaking out. Okay Sakura, calm down. Sakura thought as she tried to calm her breathing. Hey, you should be happy, you're gonna have Naruto-kun's baby. Plus he'll be ecstatic to hear you're pregnant. Inner Sakura said, trying to comfort her outer self. Sakura was shaken from her thoughts when she felt a hand on her shoulder. She looked to see her master smiling at her. Sakura, you should be happy, you're gonna be a mother, Tsunade said as his smile widened. Something I will never be able to experience. Tsunade said the last part under her breath so no one could hear what she said. Suddenly what Tsunade said finally had sunken in. I'm gonna be a mom, Sakura said in a hushed tone as a smile spread across her face. I'm gonna be a mom. Sakura yelled as she hugged Tsunade and Hinata. Congratulations Sakura. Hinata said, truly happy for her friend, but there still was a small twinge of jealousy. So how are you gonna tell the Gaki? Tsunade said as she pulled out a sake bottle. I don't know, I'll tell him in a few days once I figure this all out. Sakura said as she finally sat in the chair she was leaning on. Well, you can tell him after I officially announce Kakashi as the Rokudaime Hokage. Tsunade said as she filled 3 cups of sake. That actually is a good idea, alright, I'll tell him after the ceremony, Sakura said with a smile. Now how about a drink to celebrate? Tsunade said as she handed Sakura and Hinata a cup. Shisho, I really shouldn't. Sakura said as she tried push the cup away. Sakura, we both know that one drink won't hurt the baby, so it's fine. Tsunade said as she handed the cup to Sakura. Yeah, you're right, well cheers. Sakura said as she raised her cup. Cheers. Hinata and Tsunade said as they raised their cups. They all clinked their cups and downed their drinks. The next day, Naruto walked towards where he was supposed to meet Tenten. He found the training ground, and he saw that Tenten was already there practicing with her various weapons. Naruto opted to just sit back and watch her for a moment. The weapons mistress of Konoha didn't disappoint. Naruto was amazed at the gracefulness Tenten possessed with each weapon, and how she effortlessly switched from weapon to weapon without missing a beat. Then he watched as she threw kunai and shuriken with accuracy that stunned him. Naruto was mesmerized by her flexible movements, elegant movements. But Naruto was shaken out of his trance when a kunai whizzed by his face and dug itself into the tree behind him. Are you gonna just stand there and watch, or are gonna come over here and fight me? Tenten yelled with a wicked grin on her face. Naruto turned to look at the kunai that had missed his face by mere inches. You could have killed me, Naruto said as he approached Tenten. Well, you're lucky that my aim was off, Tenten said as her grin widened. Oh, I'm gonna get you for that, Naruto said as he pulled out a kunai and took a fighting stance. Come and get me, Foxy, and don't you dare go easy on me, Tenten said as she jumped back and unwrapped a scroll. Instantly a barrage of kunai came sailing at Naruto. He quickly jumped over the kunai and started charging Tenten. She was expecting this and she pulled out her own kunai. Their blades clashed, causing sparks to fly. They started to fight for dominance, but Naruto's superior strength was starting to overpower Tenten. But just before Naruto overpowered her, Tenten smirked and raised her other hand. Naruto turned and spotted a piece of ninja wire wrapped around her index finger. With a flick of her finger, Naruto was completely wrapped in ninja wire. Submit, Tenten said as she placed her kunai to Naruto's neck. Naruto just smirked before he puffed into smoke. Shit, a kage bushin', Tenten said as she spun around trying to locate Naruto. Suddenly Naruto jumped out of some nearby bushes with a Kaden Rasengan in his hands. Shit, Tenten yelled as she jumped out of the way. Naruto flew past where Tenten was and slammed the Rasengan into a tree. The tree exploded into a ball of flames, and was completely incinerated. Tenten said as she watched the tree disintegrate and turn into a pile of ashes. Hey, you said not to hold back, Naruto said with a grin as he activated his Bijuu maid. That I did, Tenten replied with a smirk. Why don't you show me what the hero of the shinobi world can do? Instantly Naruto was in front of Tenten. She barely had time to react before he was throwing a punch at her. She managed to raise her arm and block the punch, but it still hurt like hell. Tenten then tried to kick out Naruto's legs, but he jumped over her kick and landed behind her. She spun around just in time to receive a kick right in the stomach. The wind was knocked out of her as she went flying through the air. Naruto was next to her in an instant. Shit, Tenten, I'm sorry, are you alright? Naruto said frantically as he kneeled next to her. I am now, Tenten said with a smirk on her face. Wah, Naruto tired to say, but when he heard click behind him he turned to see a dozen kunai flying towards him. He looked down and saw that he had kneeled right on a tripwire. Naruto rolled out of the kunai's path. When he looked back up, Tenten was charging him again. You're too easy to fool, Naruto, she said as she swung her kunai at him. But she was surprised when Naruto grabbed her arm and spun her around, slamming her back into a tree. Then she felt the cold steel of a kunai against her neck. Submit, Naruto said as a clone came up and disarmed Tenten. Never, Tenten said defiantly. I bet I can make you submit, Naruto said with a smirk. How do you? Tenten started to speak, but she was stopped when Naruto pressed his lips against hers. It was a gentle kiss that showed the respect and admiration they both held for each other. Naruto dropped the kunai in his hand and wrapped his arms around Tenten's waist. Her arms wrapped around Naruto's neck, as her fingers tangled in his hair. Suddenly Naruto was surprised to feel Tenten's tongue asking to enter his mouth. He smirked, that was supposed to be his job, but Tenten never liked when men had all the control. He happily opened his lips, and their tongues met. Tenten tried not to moan when her tongue met Naruto's. Naruto was being so gentle and loving with her, and she loved every second of it. But the need for air caused them to separate, much to Tenten's disappointment. They both separated and just stared into each other's eyes. Her brown eyes met his blue ones, conveying all the emotions they held for each other. But she suddenly felt Naruto grasp her hands and hold them tightly. Tenten-chan, before we continue this relationship I have to tell you something, Naruto said, causing Tenten to tilt her head in confusion. Okay Naruto, what do you need to tell me? Tenten asked, slightly worried he might say that they couldn't be together. Taking a deep breath, Naruto began to speak. If we get together you'll have to share me with a few other girls. Naruto said, causing Tenten to go wide-eyed. What do you mean? Since I'm the last Namikaze and the last male Uzumaki, Tsunade Bachan instituted the Clan Restoration Act for me. This means that I'm allowed to take on multiple wives to help restore my family. Naruto said as he watched Tenten to gauge her reaction. Tenten looked down and started to think this over. She knew now that she truly wanted Naruto and not Neji. Also she noticed that she didn't particularly mind having to share Naruto. Have you picked any other girls? Tenten asked suddenly. Yeah, I have. There's Sakura, Hinata, Konan, Ryuuzetsu, Anko, possibly Ino, and hopefully you. When Naruto said her name he gave her a hopeful smile. Well, at least they're all girls I know, Tenten said as she looked away again. Screw it, I'm in. Really? Naruto said as a large smile started to form on his face. Yes, now kiss me again, Foxy. Tenten said as she pulled Naruto in for another kiss. After kissing for a few more minutes, they both sat against the tree. Tenten was sitting between Naruto's legs with her head resting against his chest. They sat like this for hours talking about their interests, hobbies, and dreams. As night started to fall, Naruto walked Tenten home. As they stopped in front of Tenten's home, Naruto gave her a lingering kiss goodnight. I love you, Tenten-chan. Naruto said as they separated. I love you too, Naruto, Tenten said with a smile. I'll see you soon. With that, Tenten walked up the stairs and entered her apartment. Naruto watched her leave with a smile, before he started walking back towards his own home. When Naruto was walking up the steps toward his apartment, he saw Neji leaning against the railing outside his door. Hey Neji, Naruto said cheerfully as he approached the Hyuga. Hello Naruto, Neji said with a small smile on his face. So why are you leaning against the railing here? Naruto asked as he approached Neji. I was waiting for you. Hearing this made Naruto raise an eyebrow. I wanted to thank you for giving Tenten a chance. Of course I would give her a chance. Tenten's a great girl and I love her. Naruto said with a genuine smile on his face. That's great to hear, Naruto. Now please take care of Tenten, Neji said as he placed his hand on Naruto's shoulder. And if I find out you hurt her, you'll have to deal with me. Because Tenten is like a sister to me, and I greatly care for her. I would never dream of hurting my precious people. I promise I will do everything in my power to make Tenten and the rest of the girls happy. Naruto said with determination in his voice. Good, I'll keep you to that promise. Neji said as he walked past Naruto and down the steps back towards the Hyuga estates. As soon as Neji was out of sight, Naruto let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. Note to self: try not to piss Neji off. Naruto thought as he opened his door and walked into his apartment. The next day, 5 p.m. Naruto was standing outside the Yamanaka flower shop, nervously shuffling from foot to foot as he waited for Ino. He was once again dressed up. He wore a black button-up shirt with an orange tie, black dress pants, and dress shoes. Cammy, I hope I don't this up. I've always had a soft spot for Ino, even thought she was always mean to me. She just reminds me so much of Sakura-chan, Naruto thought as the door to the shop opened, and what he saw made his breath hitch. To say Ino was stunning would be a grave understatement. She wore a beautiful purple sequin dress that seemed to shine in setting sun. The dress stopped just above her knees, and showed off her strong-toned legs. The dress also hugged her body, allowing Naruto to ogle her voluptuous curves. Her hair was still in its normal ponytail, with half her face covered by her platinum blonde locks. Kami Ino-chan, you look beautiful, Naruto said breathlessly. Thank you, Naruto, she said as she tried to control her maddening blush. Now it was Ino's turn to look Naruto over, and she had to admit she liked what she was seeing. But she couldn't help but giggle when she saw his orange tie. I guess you do have to wear orange with every outfit, Ino said as tried to stifle her giggling. But except for that, you clean up pretty well. Hey, orange is an awesome color, and thank you, Naruto said as he offered Ino his arm. Oh, what a gentleman, Ino said with a smile as she grabbed onto Naruto's arm. After a short walk, Ino and Naruto stood outside the restaurant she had picked out. When they stepped inside, the sounds of soft music filled the air as they were quickly led to their table. After they placed their orders, Naruto and Ino really got to know each other. They found out that they actually shared a lot of things in common. Ino was surprised to learn that Naruto enjoyed gardening, and she was shocked at how much he knew about various flowers and plants. Why did you never tell me that you knew so much about gardening, Naruto? Well, it's not a hobby that a lot of guys have. I was kinda embarrassed by it. Plus I never thought you would really care. Naruto said the last part in a saddened tone. Hearing this made Ino feel like trash. She never had realized what a great guy Naruto was, and she had always mistreated him. But she was determined to make it up to him. Naruto, I'm so sorry for the way I treated you. I never realized what an amazing guy you were. Ino said as she placed her hand on top of Naruto's. You don't need to apologize, Ino-chan, you were focused on the tem. Naruto was gonna say more, but he was cut off by Ino. Please Naruto, don't mention and I do need to apologize, because you've done so much for me. You even brought my dead father back to life. Even though I was a total bitch to you, and it makes me feel like shit. Ino said as tears started to form in her eyes. Seeing that Ino was about to cry, Naruto leaned across the table and wiped away her forming tears. Please don't feel bad, Ino-chan, I hate to see my precious people upset. Naruto said as he squeezed her hand. I'm one of your precious people. Of course you are, Ino-chan, I care for you greatly, and I want you to be happy. Naruto said as he turned to look at a dance floor that was in the restaurant. Naruto stood up and offered Ino his hand. May I have this dance, Ms. Yamanaka? Naruto said with a smile on his face. You dance? Ino said skeptically as she took his hand. Naruto led her to the dance floor and wrapped his hands around her waist, while Ino wrapped her arms around his neck. Well, Shizune-chan and Hinata-chan taught me a few steps, and I've been practicing with Kage Bushin. Naruto said as he tried to remember the steps he had been practicing. Ino and let him lead her through the steps of their dance. They fumbled a few times, but they quickly laughed it off and returned to each other's embrace. Eventually they gave up on dancing, and just swayed back and forth to the soft music with Ino resting her head against Naruto's chest. I could stay like this forever. Ino said as she tried to get closer to Naruto, enjoying his warm and comforting embrace. Yeah, this is nice. Naruto said as he leaned down and kissed the top of Ino's head, causing her blush against his chest. After their dance, Naruto paid for their meal, and Ino escorted back to her home. When they reached the entrance to the flower shop, Ino heard a small poof. She turned her head and saw that Naruto was holding a beautiful purple rose in his hand. A beautiful flower for a beautiful girl. Naruto said as he handed the flower to an amazed Ino. Where did you get this? It's gorgeous. Ino said as she clutched the rose to her chest. I planted it myself, it took a lot of failed attempts but I finally got the perfect one. Naruto said as he rubbed the back of his head. Oh Naruto, this has been the best night of my life, thank you. I'm glad to hear that, Ino-chan, I had an amazing time too. Suddenly they found themselves staring into each other's eyes. His piercing blue eyes gazed into her soft blue ones. They started leaning towards each other, their lips inches apart. Naruto captured Ino's lips with his own. Ino had kissed a few other boys before, but Naruto far surpassed them all. He was possessive, but at the same time gentle. She moaned when Naruto's tongue shot into her mouth. They stayed like this for a few moments, kissing in front of her home. When they finally separated, Ino had a dreamy look in her eyes. She clutched the purple rose to her racing heart. Naruto, I think I love you. Ino said as she gripped his hands and looked into his eyes again. I love you too, Ino-chan. Naruto said as he leaned in and captured her lips in a gentle kiss. When they separated, they said their goodbyes. Naruto turned and walked home with a smile plastered on his face. The next day, Hokage Tower. Tsunade stood on top of the Hokage Tower. She looked down and saw most of Konoha gathered around the tower to hear her announcement. People of Konoha, I have gathered all of you here today to make an important announcement. Tsunade's voice boomed, quieting the crowd. I've thought about this for a while now, and after fighting in the Fourth Great Shinobi War, I've decided to step down as Hokage. The crowd fell silent as they processed the information they had just heard. I've already decided on my successor. So I present you the Rokudaime Hokage Kakashi Hatake. Tsunade said as Kakashi appeared next to her. The crowd had mixed reactions. There was cheering and applause, some were still too shocked to speak, but one person asked the question that was on everyone's mind. What about Naruto Uzumaki? The man yelled, causing much of the crowd to ask the same question. Tsunade let out a sigh as she looked and saw Naruto watching from a nearby rooftop. She was reassured when he smiled at her and gave her a thumbs up. I've already discussed the situation with Naruto, and he understands. He may be the strongest shinobi in the village, possibly the whole world, but he just doesn't have the political skills to be Hokage yet. But Kakashi and I will help train Naruto, so that when he's ready he can take up the mantle of Hokage. Tsunade said, causing the crowd to burst out into cheers. Naruto smiled as he watched the crowd cheer for his sensei. With one last glance he turned around and returned to his apartment, but just before he could sit down he heard a few knocks at his door. With a sigh he got up and opened the door. He was surprised to see Sakura there. Sakura-chan, it's so good to see you, it's been a few days. Naruto said, extremely happy to see his girlfriend, and first love. He then stepped aside, and gestured for Sakura to come in. Sakura didn't say a word, and immediately sat on Naruto's couch. Naruto was worried, because Sakura looked upset. Sakura-chan, what's wrong? Naruto asked as he rushed over to the couch and immediately sat next to her. Sakura looked at Naruto and sighed, her emerald eyes a flurry of emotions. Naruto, I have something very important to tell you. Sure Sakura-chan, you can tell me anything. You have to promise me you won't freak out. I promise I won't freak out. Naruto said with a smile. Sakura took a deep breath, and spoke again. Naruto. I'm pregnant. What? Naruto nearly yelled, his mind racing. You're gonna be a father, Naruto. Sakura said with a smile as she held Naruto's hand. I'm gonna be a dad. Naruto managed to say before he passed out. Chapter 9. Naruto groaned lightly as he started to awaken. He was faintly aware that his head was resting on someone's lap. He could also feel the warm tingling of healing chakra on his head. When Naruto finally opened his eyes he spotted Sakura hovering over him. She had an annoyed look on her face as her glowing green hands hovered over his head. With another groan Naruto sat up, which surprised Sakura. What the hell happened? Naruto asked as he rubbed his still aching head. Well, after I told you I was pregnant, you passed out and hit your head on the table, you baka. I had to make sure you didn't get a concussion, and suffer any brain damage, any more brain damage. Sakura yelled, but she let out a sigh and calmed down. What happened, Naruto? You said you wouldn't freak out. Are you not ready to have kids? Naruto could see that Sakura was starting to panic, so he leaned over and gently kissed her, effectively silencing her. When they separated, Naruto grabbed Sakura's hands and looked her right in the eyes. Sakura-chan, you don't know how happy I am to know that we are gonna be parents. You just caught me off guard with the news, and I was just shocked. There's nothing I want more in this world than to start a family with you and the other girls. I'd give up on being Hokage to have a family with you all. Naruto said in the most sincere voice Sakura had ever heard, and it brought her to tears. She immediately wrapped her arms around him, pulled him close, as she cried into his shoulder. Thank Kami, I thought you weren't happy. Sakura said into his shoulder. Sakura-chan, being a dad has always been one of my greatest dreams. Since I grew up without my parents, I've always wanted to have kids so I could treat them the way I always wanted to be treated as a kid. Naruto said as Sakura released him from the hug and looked back into his eyes. But what if we aren't ready? What if we're bad parents? Sakura said as she broke his gaze and looked to the floor. Sakura-chan, don't you ever think that. We'll be the best parents ever, and we're more than ready, believe it. Naruto said with his foxy grin. Those few words immediately lifted Sakura's spirits and a small smile spread across her face. Do you really believe that we're ready? Sakura-chan, I know we're ready. You're one of the strongest people I know, you've done things that I couldn't dream of doing, so I think we can handle kids. Sakura's smile widened when he said this. Damn it, he's right, we are ready for kids. I know we can do this. Oh, our baby is gonna be so kawaii. Inner Sakura squealed like a little school girl. I have one question though. Naruto said, shaking Sakura out of her thoughts. Sure, Naruto, ask away. You're the medical expert, so how did this happen so fast? Naruto asked, which made Sakura look at him as if he was the dumbest person on earth. Well, he was sometimes. You do know that if you have unprotected that it significantly increases the chance of pregnancy, right? Kid, let me talk to the girl, I can explain what happened. Kurama said, surprising Naruto. Oh hey Kurama, haven't heard from you in a while. Why would you want to talk to Sakura-chan? She already explained it to me. Because Kit, that's not the reason she got pregnant, so just let me take over for a minute so I can explain this to her. Naruto looked at Kurama skeptically for a second before he shrugged his shoulders and let Kurama take over. Sakura was about to say something, because Naruto started to space out her. But she knew he was talking to Kurama, so she patiently waited for him to finish. After a few moments Naruto opened his eyes, but Sakura was surprised to see red slitted eyes instead of Naruto's normal blue ones. Hello child. The Kurama-possessed Naruto said in a deep voice with a small smile. Why you're Kurama, what have you done with Naruto? Sakura said as she started to back away slowly. Calm down Gaki, Naruto let me take over for a bit so I could explain some things to you. Oh okay, so what did you want tell me? Sakura said as she started to relax slightly. I want to explain to you exactly why you got pregnant. It has to do with the mate mark on your arm. Sakura lifted her sleeve and looked at the rings on her arm. When the Gaki bit you and gave you that mark, it infused his sperm with some of my chakra. This increased its potency tenfold, which almost guarantees pregnancy. So you're telling me that if Naruto bites any of the other girls, they will be pregnant too? Precisely, you're pretty smart for human. I can see why Naruto chased after you for so long. That's why I had Naruto bite you first. He loves all of you girls equally, but you were his first love. So you have a special place in his heart, and my thanks. What are you thanking me for? You were one of the first people to truly acknowledge Naruto, even though it might not have been in the best way. You don't realize how important you yelling at Naruto actually was when you were younger. When you yelled at him, it made him feel like he belonged. You treated him like a normal person, not some demon child that needed to be ignored. Hearing this made Sakura go wide-eyed. She didn't realize it was so bad for Naruto that someone yelling at him made him feel accepted. That Hyuga girl may have loved the Gaki longer than you, but when Naruto truly needed someone, she wasn't there for him. She always watched and supported for him from afar. Although she has changed that lately, so she has earned my respect. Hearing about Hinata made Sakura upset with herself. Kami, if only she had realized Naruto needed her back then, things could have turned out so different. Kurama saw the self-hatred in her eyes and decided to speak up. Don't beat yourself up, child. You didn't realize how much Naruto needed love back then, but you're here for him now and that's what matters. You don't realize how much you truly mean to Naruto. You were his pillar of strength, that kept him going no matter what. Sakura formed a small smile, as a blush spread across her face. That's why I made you matriarch of Naruto's new family. What did you say? Sakura asked, her interest piqued. A smile spread across the possessed Naruto's face. That mark you have on your arm is a special one. It has 3 bands for a reason. That specific mate mark makes you the matriarch or leader of the rest of Naruto's girls. It's more of a symbolic thing, you won't have any real control of the other girls. The other girls will only have 1 or 2 rings. The other girls closest to Naruto's will have 2 rings, like the Hyuga girl for example. However, other girls the Gaki is with will only have 1 ring. Kurama, I can't thank you enough for giving me this special gift. Sakura said as she hugged Kurama. This surprised the Kyuubi. He had never had anything like this happen before, so he just sat there wide-eyed. When Sakura released Kurama, he was blushing lightly. Letting out an embarrassed cough, Kurama continued. Just treat Naruto right, child, because if he puts his trust and love in you, I'll do the same. With that, Naruto closed his eyes, and when they opened again they returned to their normal deep blue. So what did Kurama want to tell you? But suddenly Naruto felt Sakura pull him into a tight hug. Sakura-chan. Just be quiet, Naruto. Sakura said as she held him closer. A smile was on both their faces as they held each other. After a few minutes of just holding each other, Sakura spoke up. So should we tell the other girls the news? Sakura asked, getting excited at the idea of telling her friends. We will, but we need to tell someone else first. Who? Sakura asked, but when Naruto answered her face went completely white. Your parents. Naruto had fearlessly faced off against Madara Uchiha and Kagaya Otsutsuki. He had gone toe-to-toe with the Jubi, and not batted an eye. But now as he stood outside the door to Sakura's home, waiting for her parents to come to the door, he was literally shaking in fear. If there was one thing that actually scared Naruto, it was the wrath of a pissed off woman. So when the door finally opened and Mebuki Haruno stood before him and Sakura, smiling warmly, Naruto almost pissed his pants in fear, thinking of what was to come. "Oh Sakura, Naruto. It's so good to see you, come in." Sakura had to literally push Naruto into the house, because he was frozen in place. She guided him into the living room, and sat him on a couch while she sat next to him. "So Sakura, this is a surprise, what are you and Naruto doing here?" Mebuki asked as she sat in a chair across from them. "Mom, is Dad here?" "Yeah, he is, dear. Why? Can you call him down please?" "Sure thing, dear. Kazashi-kun, come on down here." Seconds later Sakura's father came down the stairs, and he made his way into the living room. "What do you want, Mebuki-chan?" "Oh, Sakura, Naruto, how are you?" Kazashi said happily as he took a seat next to his wife. "We're fine, Dad. Naruto and I just came over, because we have something important to tell you guys." Sakura glanced over at Naruto, and what she saw made her sweat drop. Naruto was gripping his pants in nervousness, and she could see the sweat pouring down his face. "Okay Haim, what did you want to tell us?" Kazashi said with a big smile. Sakura took a deep breath, as Naruto prepared for the worst. "Mom, Dad, I'm pregnant." Naruto cringed in fear, as utter silence filled the room. After about 10 seconds Naruto risked opening his eyes. He saw Mebuki and Kazashi sitting in the same spot processing the new information. Sakura tried to speak, but Mebuki let out a deafening squeal before she pulled Sakura into a crushing hug. "I'm gonna be a grandma." Mebuki yelled as she hugged Sakura tighter. Naruto just sat there, and watched everything unfold. So he wasn't gonna be yelled at, or hit. But he nearly jumped out his skin when he felt a hand land on his shoulder. He looked at Kazashi staring at him. Shit, maybe he spoke too soon. But he was surprised when a massive grin spread across Kazashi's face. "Good job, kid," Kazashi said as he patted Naruto on the shoulder. "Wait, you two aren't mad at me?" Naruto asked as he looked at Mebuki and Kazashi. Mebuki let go of Sakura and looked at Naruto. "Are you kidding me? We couldn't be happier. You two may be a little young, but you're definitely ready," Mebuki said with a big smile as she hugged Naruto. When Mebuki released Naruto, she had a sad smile on her face. "Only if your mother were alive to see this. Me and her always used to talk about matching you two together and we couldn't wait to be grandmas." Naruto went wide-eyed when he heard this. You knew my mother?" Naruto asked as a tear started to form in his eyes. "Yes, she was one of my best friends. We spent a lot of time together," Mebuki said as she quickly tried to wipe away her own tears. You'll have to tell me about her sometime," Naruto said with a small smile. "Of course dear, any time." Mebuki released Naruto and clapped her hands together. "I say we celebrate, I'm cooking," Mebuki said happily as she sped off towards the kitchen. Kazashi just followed after his wife, with a goofy smile on his face, to help her prepare dinner. As Naruto watched Sakura's parents from the living room, he couldn't help but feel like this was some place that her belonged. "I hope the other girl's parents are this easygoing," Naruto thought as he wiped some sweat from his brow. As Mebuki started on the food, she looked up and smiled. "Were you watching Kushina? I guess you were right after all." Our kids did end up together, even though Sakura isn't the only one with Naruto. Those two share a special bond that will never be broken, Mebuki thought with a big smile on her face. Little did she know that Kushina was indeed watching, and she couldn't be happier. "Minato-kun, did you hear that? We're grandparents Tte-bane," Kushina yelled as she hugged her husband and jumped up and down. "I know dear, I know," Minato replied with smile on his face. "Good job son," Minato thought as he watched Naruto sit down to eat with the Harunos. His smile grew as saw Naruto laughing and joking with the family, as if they were his own. The next day, Naruto had asked all his girls to meet him at Ichiraku to tell them the big news. He had also invited Karin, Kakashi, Yamato, and Sai, seeing as they were his family and teammates. Everyone occupied a stool, with Naruto and Sakura occupying the center too. Hinata knew what was going to be announced, but she wanted it to be a surprise, so she kept quiet. Also Karin looked as if she was. Seeing that everyone was there, Naruto stood and cleared his throat. "Girls, Kakashi, Yamato, Sai, you're all probably wondering why I called you here. Naruto asked, earning nods from everyone. Well, Sakura-chan and I have some big news to tell you guys. What is it, Naruto-kun? Enko asked, turning to face them. Sakura-chan, do you want to tell them, or should I? I told my parents, you get to tell them. Sakura said, shaking her head. Naruto took a deep breath and let a big smile cross his face. Everybody, Sakura-chan is pregnant. Naruto said, making everybody go wide-eyed. There was tense silence for a few seconds before all the girls, except for Konan and Karin, yelled and surrounded Sakura in a group hug. Konan just smiled warmly and congratulated Naruto. While Karin walked up and hugged Naruto instead of Sakura. I had a feeling that's what you were gonna say. Karin said with a smirk. How could you know? Naruto asked as he smiled at his pseudo-sister. I could sense a new chakra coming from Sakura, and it wasn't the Kyuubi's. Naruto just smiled and turned to his senseis and sighed. All of them had a smile on their face, while Naruto assumed Kakashi had a smile on his face. I'm proud of you, Naruto. Kakashi said as he patted his student on the shoulder. I knew it was gonna happen eventually. Yamato said with a smile. I'm truly happy for you, Naruto. Sai said with one of his genuine smiles. Hey, the next round of ramen is on the Hokage. Kakashi said with an eye smile. No way, this one is on the house, it's a celebration for Naruto-kun and Sakura. Iyame said with a smile as her and Tyuki went into the kitchen to make the ramen. The group spent the next few hours laughing and celebrating Sakura's pregnancy. But as the day drew on, the rest of Naruto's girls gathered around him. Each girl had a sultry and lust-filled look on their face. Each girl grabbed a part of Naruto and looked him with lust-filled eyes. Then they all spoke at once in sultry tone. Oh Naruto, when's it our turn? The race was now on. Who would get to Naruto next? Chapter 10. Naruto looked at the girls surrounding him and gulped audibly. Each girl had a look of pure lust in their eyes. Even Konan was amongst the girls. Naruto thought she at least would be able to control herself. So Naruto, who's next? It's me, right? Ino cooed as she pressed her against Naruto's arm. No, Naruto obviously wants me next. Tenten yelled as she grabbed Naruto's other arm. Hey, what if Naruto-kun wants me? Hinata said shyly from behind Naruto. Well, Naruto, who is it? Ino and Tenten yelled simultaneously. Well, you see. Bye. Suddenly Naruto activated his Rinnegan and used it to teleport across the street as he took off running. Hey, get back here. Ino yelled as she took after Naruto. You won't get away that easily. Tenten said as she took after Ino. Hinata stayed behind momentarily before a look of determination came across her face. I can't let them win. I must get to Naruto-kun first. With that thought in her mind, Hinata took off in pursuit. Ryuuzetsu, Konan, and Anko smirked as they turned around and sat back down in their seats. Sakura looked at the other girls in slight confusion. You three aren't gonna chase after him? Sakura said as she ate a mouthful of her ramen. She was spending too much time around Naruto. She had a massive craving for ramen now, or maybe that was just the baby. That thought made a smile spread across her face as she placed a hand on her stomach. Anko just smirked and turned around on the stool, and leaned her elbows against the counter. Let those girls wear themselves out chasing the Gaki, they'll never catch him. Sakura raised an eyebrow at Anko's response. When the Gaki was younger, he could always hide from and outrun even the Anbu. It was pretty damn impressive. Anko said as a grin replaced her smirk. Yes, I heard tales of Naruto's impressive evasion skills. Konan said, turning to face Sakura. Yeah, that kid has so many impressive skills. I'm not gonna waste my time chasing after him, I'll just wait for the right moment to be with him, Ryuuzetsu said as she turned to leave. Well, I've got to go. I've got another damn mission, should be back in a few days. Ryuuzetsu said goodbye to every one of her friends, and bowed respectfully to Kakashi before she left to pack. Well, I must be off too, I'm needed at the academy. Konan said as she too stood to leave. After a few days as a regular shinobi, Konan decided she wanted to give teaching a try. So she applied to be an instructor at the academy. Because of a shortage of good instructors, Konan was immediately given a teaching position within the academy. Congratulations, Sakura, but I have somewhere I must be. Sai said as he gave Sakura a smile before he took off walking down the street. Well, I'm happy for you and Naruto, Sakura. But I gotta return to my post. Yamato said as he flashed Sakura a smile before he left the ramen stand. I'm so proud of Naruto and you, I really wish Minato-sensei and Kushina-sama could be here to see this. Kakashi said with a sad smile behind his mask. I have to return to the tower, but feel free to drop by if you ever need anything, I'll always make time for my students. Thanks Kakashi-sensei. Sakura said as she stood up and gave her former sensei a hug. With a wave Kakashi shushined away. That just left Karin, Anko, and Sakura still at the stand. Well, I think I'll be off, I have to be somewhere. Anko with a smirk as she stood up. Anko, I know what you're planning, and I just want to say be prepared. Because Naruto has a lot of stamina. Sakura said with a knowing smile. I'll keep that in mind. Anko said with a blush as she jumped onto a nearby rooftop. With a sigh Sakura too stood. Come on Karin, let's head back to the hospital, we need to get you some more training. With a groan of annoyance Karin stood and followed Sakura towards the hospital. Naruto was slightly panting as he neared his apartment. He had been running away from Ino, Tenten, and surprisingly Hinata for hours. He was good at evasion, and thanks to his ungodly stamina he was able to outrun them. But Hinata's Byakugan made it virtually impossible for him to hide. So that left just one option for him, and that was to run and run and run. Eventually, after running all over Konoha, the girls apparently gave up. Naruto let out a sigh of relief as he walked up the steps to his apartment. He was surprised Anko was not among the girls chasing him, and it slightly worried him. He knew she was planning something. Just as Naruto stepped into his apartment he was slammed against a wall, and a pair of lips slammed against his. Oh, that's where Anko was. Naruto just smiled and started kissing Anko back. They quickly opened their mouths and their tongues dashed out to meet. Anko let out a moan when she felt Naruto's tongue wrestle with hers. Eventually they found themselves on Naruto's bed. With Naruto hovering over Anko. Naruto's hands started to roam Anko's clothed body as they kissed. He started to work off her trench coat, as she unzipped his jacket. Naruto massaged Anko's through her mesh top. This caused Anko to let out a deep moan. Anko's hands started to move over Naruto's toned chest and abs, causing a wicked smile to spread across her face. Wanting to get things moving, Anko pushed Naruto off, and started to remove the rest of her clothes. Naruto took her example and started removing his cloths as well. Anko's eyes instantly fell upon Naruto's hardened manhood, and she could feel herself getting wetter every second. Naruto's eyes roamed Anko's toned and well-proportioned body. She had nice full-on legs, toned muscles, and he could see that she had a nice firm. They quickly approached one another and captured each other's lips. As they kissed, Anko's hands snaked down and she started to stroke Naruto's manhood. This caused Naruto to let out a small moan from Anko's experienced hands. Not wanting to be outdone, Naruto reached a hand down and inserted 2 fingers into Anko's wet womanhood. Anko's eyes went wide, she felt Naruto's fingers enter her. She tried to suppress her moans as Naruto's fingers started to slowly move in and out. Naruto's magic fingers were quickly making Anko's mind go blank with pleasure. Naruto was surprised at how tight Anko felt as he pistoned his fingers. While one hand fingered Anko, Naruto's other hand came up to massage one of Anko's breast. His mouth quickly found its way to Anko's nipple, causing her to moan lewdly. After a few more minutes, Anko came around Naruto's hand. Holy shit, I've never came that hard. Anko panted out. Here, let me help you with this. Anko said as she got down on her knees and licked the tip of Naruto's. After a few licks, Anko was immediately bobbing her head on Naruto's shaft. Naruto's eyes nearly bugged out when he felt Anko deep-throat him. Sakura may have been enthusiastic when but Anko had experience on her side and it defiantly paid off. Naruto's hands combed through Anko's purple hair as let out small moans. Wow, Anko-chan, you're really good at this. Naruto managed to grunt out. But when Anko heard this, she immediately stopped and stepped away from Naruto. Anko-chan, what's wrong? Kami, I feel like such a whore. Anko said as she choked back a sob. Anko-chan, you're not a whore, you're a beautiful and strong woman. But I slept with all those other people. I wanted my first time with you to be special, but I keep thinking about my past. Anko-chan, you were alone back then, and you were desperate to feel anything but sadness. So you're not a whore, you're just a woman who needs love. If you'll let me, I'll show how much I love you. Anko looked at Naruto and her brown eyes softened. You will. Yes, I'll make you feel like the most special woman on earth. Enko looked into his eyes for any signs of deception. Seeing none, she leaned in and whispered in Naruto's ear. Please be careful with me, Naruto Uzumaki, I can't take any more heartbreak in my life. Of course, Enko-chan. Naruto whispered back as he gave Enko a gentle kiss. As they kissed, Naruto started to lead them back towards the bed. Naruto gently laid Enko on the bed, and positioned his at her still moist entrance. You ready, Enko? Naruto asked, waiting for her approval. Yes, but please be gentle, it's been a long time. Enko said with a small smile. Naruto nodded and slowed pushed inside Enko, making her gasp. Slowly Naruto inched inside her tight passage. After nearly a minute, Naruto was fully inside Enko. He stayed in place and waited for Enko to tell him that he could move. A few moments later, Enko nodded and Naruto slowly started to pull out and thrust back into Enko. As he thrusted, Naruto held Enko close to his body. He placed kisses on her neck and shoulder, while he whispered sweet nothings into her ear. Enko had been with several lovers throughout her life. None of them compared to Naruto. He paid attention to her body, and was giving her the greatest pleasure she had ever felt in her life. Enko loved his slow loving thrusts, but it wasn't enough. She wanted to feel everything Naruto had to offer. Naruto-kun, I love how gentle you're being. But please go faster, harder. I need more of you. Enko said between moans as her hands gripped Naruto's hair. Naruto just grunted and sped up his thrusts, adding more power behind them. Instantly Enko's pleasure shot through the roof, and her mind was replaced with nothing but pleasure. Enko let out a surprised yelp when Naruto flipped her over onto all fours. Naruto started thrusting into Enko from behind, causing her to moan even louder from the new pleasurable sensations. Enko nearly lost it when Naruto started to thrust even faster. The room was filled with sounds of slapping flesh as Naruto continued to fill Enko. But Naruto was human and Enko's tight passage was making his own release draw closer and closer. Enko-chan, I'm gonna come soon. Naruto grunted out in between thrusts. I'm so close to Naruto-kun, please let's come together. Are you sure, Enko? There's no going back after this. Naruto asked as he slowed his thrusts. Naruto, I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Enko said huskily as she continued to meet his thrusts with her own. As Naruto's orgasm approached, he pulled Enko close to him. Her back was pressed against his chest as he held her with a few more thrusts. Naruto came inside Enko, his sperm coating her womb. Just as Naruto released, he bit into Enko's shoulder, causing her to yell out in both pain and pleasure. When Enko felt Naruto's release fill her, it caused her own orgasm. With a loud scream, Enko came around Naruto. Naruto slowly pulled out, causing a mixture of their juices to spill out of Enko. When Naruto looked at Enko's arm, he smiled. There were 2 rings on Enko's left arm, one red and one orange. We're finally one, Enko-chan. Naruto said as he rubbed his fingers over Enko's mate mark. When Enko saw the mark, she smiled. She was officially Naruto's girl now. And she couldn't be happier. Well, Gaki, Sakura told me you have a lot of stamina, Enko said in a lusty tone as she spotted Naruto's hardening. Why don't we put that stamina to the test? We have all night and I can defiantly go for a few more rounds. Naruto merely grinned and wrapped Enko in his arms. Chapter 11. Naruto yawned as his eyes slowly opened. When his eyes fully opened, he was instantly met with the sleeping face of Enko. She had fallen asleep on top of him after their lovemaking last night. She didn't even bother taking Naruto's shaft out of her womanhood. Naruto had a small smile on his face as he watched Enko sleep peacefully. He then looked to the mate mark on her arm and his smile widened. He reached out and gently ran his fingers over the marks. I promise, Enko-chan, that I'll show you all the love that you were denied for all these years. We'll shower our child with the love that we were both denied. Naruto thought as he pictured his future family with all the girls. At Naruto's touch, Enko started to stir slightly. She let out a soft yawn and started to stretch. Enko-chan, time to get up. Naruto said softly as he kissed the top of Enko's head. 5 more minutes. Enko said in a tired voice as she buried her face into the crook of Naruto's neck. All right, my snake, Naruto said as he hugged Enko close to his chest. After a few more minutes in each other's embrace, Enko reluctantly got up. She let out a soft moan of disappointment as Naruto's shaft slid out of her. Last night was amazing, Naruto, Enko said with a smile. You made me feel so special. It's because you are special to me, Enko. Each of you girls has something special that I love about you. Enko smiled, but it turned to a frown when she looked at herself and Naruto. Come on Gaki, let's wash up, Enko said as she grabbed Naruto's arm and led him into the shower. After cleaning each other up, Naruto and Enko were now in the kitchen. Enko sat at the table and watched as Naruto raced around the kitchen to prepare breakfast. I never saw Konan, where do you think she is? Enko asked as Naruto cracked a few eggs and put some bread in the toaster. Konan-chan is so busy at the academy, that she often sleeps there. She even has a cot set up in one of the storage rooms, Naruto said with a chuckle. I swear Sakura-chan and her work themselves to death sometimes. Yeah, Sakura looks like a zombie sometimes after her shifts, Enko said as a few giggles escaped her lips. I know it worries me sometimes, but I know it makes her happy to save lives, Naruto said as he placed a plate of food in front of Enko. Enko looked at the plate of scrambled eggs and toast. A meal fit for a bachelor, Enko said with a grin. Hey, I may not know how to cook many things, but what I can cook is really good, Naruto said with a pout before he started to eat. Besides, Konan-chan has been doing a lot of the cooking lately. She's actually an amazing cook, Naruto said as his mouth started watering as he thought of Konan's cooking. Enko just rolled her eyes and took a bite of her food. Her eyes widened when she tasted it. They were the best tasting eggs she had ever eaten. Immediately she started to scarf down the food. Seeing this caused Naruto to burst out laughing. Told you I can cook, Naruto said with a grin. After a second helping of eggs, Naruto and Enko sat at the table drinking some tea and making small talk. So what are you gonna do today? Enko asked as she sipped her tea. I don't know. If the girls don't try and jump me, I was gonna go and visit Ino-chan. What about you? I have to go and help Ibiki with a few things, Enko said as she finished the last of her tea. So why do you want to see Ino? Naruto let out a sigh before he started speaking. It's just that out of all you girls, Ino-chan and I have had the roughest past interactions. I know she wants to try and make up for all the times she was mean to me. But I don't want her to feel like she's obligated to love me. I truly love and care for her, and I want to show her that. Enko smiled at Naruto's words. She could tell that he meant everything. He truly did love and care for them all. But before I visit her, there's something I have to tell you, Enko-chan. What is it, Naruto? Enko asked. The seriousness in his voice surprised her. It has to do with the marks on your arm. Enko snuck a glance at the 2 rings on her arm. Yeah, what about them? What I'm about to tell you is pretty big news. Are you ready? Seeing Enko nod, Naruto took a deep breath. Enko-chan, those marks make you one of my mates. It also means that you're probably pregnant. Enko went wide-eyed and her breath hitched. I'm pregnant. More than likely. The same thing happened with Sakura-chan. Kurama said it had to do with my sperm being infused with his chakra, or something like that. That's exactly what it is, Yubaka. Kurama roared from his cage. Love you to Kurama. Stupid Gaki. Kurama grumbled as he laid his head down and tried to sleep. Naruto looked and saw Enko's shocked face. So he grabbed her hands and squeezed them lightly. Enko, you're gonna be a mom. Enko started to take quick shallow breaths, but she did have a smile growing on her face. Mom. I'm gonna be a mom, Enko said as tears of joy poured from her eyes. I'm gonna be a mom. Without warning, Enko tackled Naruto and crushed him with a tight hug. Thank you, Naruto. Enko yelled as she peppered kisses all over Naruto's face. I love you. Naruto just laughed at Enko's behavior and returned her embrace. I love you too, Enko-chan. After Enko had calmed down, she sat back down at the table with Naruto. Enko was busy trying to wipe away the last of her tears, while Naruto just smiled at her. Enko-chan, I'm gonna go visit Ino-chan. After you're done with Ibiki, I want you to go find Sakura-chan and tell her the news. Have her examine you and confirm everything, Naruto said as he stood up. Enko nodded, so Naruto gave her a kiss and walked out the door. When Naruto was gone, Enko placed a hand on her stomach and a large smile graced her face. Well, I guess I should get to work, Enko thought as she threw on her trench coat and walked out the door. After about 10 minutes of walking, Naruto stood outside the Yamanaka flower shop. He smiled at the thought of seeing Ino. When he walked into the shop, he saw Ino with her face buried in a magazine, not even paying attention. Welcome to the Yamanaka flower shop. Ino drawled out in a bored voice, not even looking up from her magazine. That's not a very good way to greet customers, Ino-chan. Ino's head shot up when she heard Naruto's voice. She saw him standing right in front of her with a massive grin plastered on his face. "Oh hi Naruto-kun," Ino said in a cheery voice as she instantly perked up. Ino was surprised when Naruto leaned across the counter and gave her a long, loving kiss. When they separated, her face was flushed red, and she had a dreamy look in her eyes. What are you doing here, Naruto-kun?" Ino said as she recovered from the kiss. "Well, I wanted to come see you, and I wanted to see if I could help you out around the shop for a bit. You know, some alone time, just between us." Ino's blush deepened when she heard Naruto wanted to spend some time just with her. "Sure Naruto-kun, I would love to spend some time with you. I was just about to go out back, and plant some new seeds," Ino said as she started walking towards the back door. "That sounds great Ino-chan, it's been a while since I've done any gardening," Naruto said with a smile as he followed Ino. Ino handed Naruto a pair of gloves, and told him what seeds to plant and where to plant them. He immediately nodded and got right to work. They made small talk, gossiped, and even cracked jokes while they planted the seeds. Ino was amazed at how different Naruto was when he was gardening. He seemed calmer and much more patient, and he was much quieter. She watched as he diligently and gently planted each seed. She smiled as she watched her boyfriend. It was still a little strange for her to think of him like that. But then her smile turned to a frown, as she thought back to how she used to treat him. She had to make it up to him somehow. She loved Naruto, she realized that fully now, and wanted to do everything in her power to make up for her past sins. Ino was so caught up in her thoughts, that she didn't notice Naruto staring at her. A frown was on his face, as he saw the pain and regret in Ino's eyes. He quietly took off his gloves and walked over to her. By the time Ino noticed Naruto, he was already kneeling in front of her. "Naruto-kun, what Ino was cut off when Naruto cupped her cheek and pressed his lips to hers. His tongue immediately asked for entrance into her mouth. She quickly agreed and parted her lips, allowing Naruto's tongue to dart into her mouth. Naruto's experienced tongue immediately dominated Ino's, so she let him explore her mouth, causing her to moan into the kiss. After what seemed like hours, Naruto broke the kiss, leaving Ino breathless. Naruto quickly grabbed Ino's hand, causing her to look into his eyes. "Ino-chan, I don't want you to feel guilty for what you did to me in the past. I don't want you to feel like you have to make things up to me. Because what's in the past doesn't matter. What matters is that you're here now, and that you love me. You do love me, right? Of course I love you, Naruto-kun. It's just that I feel like I don't deserve to be with you after all you've done for me, and how I've treated you." Naruto smiled and gave Ino another loving kiss. "Ino-chan, all that matters is what you want. It's not about what you deserve. Hell, I don't deserve to, but with a girl as amazing and beautiful as you. All that I want is for you to be happy. I'll do anything for you girls." Ino's eyes started to water when she heard Naruto's words. He really does love me. I have to show him how much I love him, but how?" Ino thought, but then an idea came to mind. She quickly wiped her tears and grabbed Naruto's hand. "Ino-chan," Naruto asked as she started leading him back out front. "You said you'd do anything to make me happy, right?" "Yeah, of course. Well, the thing that will make me happy right now, is if we go up to my room and make love." Naruto went wide-eyed when he heard this. "Are you sure, Ino-chan? There's no going back after this?" "Yes Naruto-kun, I want you to love me, to take all this guilt away." "Alright, anything for my beautiful flower," Naruto said with a smile as he let Ino lead him to her room. As soon as they entered her room, Ino closed the door. Almost instantly she was on Naruto, attacking his lips with her own. Ino moaned when she felt Naruto's hands start to roam her body. She let out a small gasp when his hands cupped. "Ooh Naruto, you dirty boy," Ino said as his hand's left hand traveled upward. "Oh, I can be much dirtier, Ino-chan," Naruto said with a grin as he reached up and started to massage her, through her purple top. This caused Ino to let out a series of soft moans, as Naruto needed her ample. Naruto grinned and unbuttoned her top. Then he removed her purple lacy bra. Once her were out, Naruto's mouth latched to one of her erect nipples. Ino grabbed Naruto's head and held him close to encourage him to continue. Naruto's tongue swirled around one nipple, while he pinched the other one with his free hand. Ino was lost in a sea of pleasure as Naruto played with her, but she felt that he had entirely too much clothing still on. Naruto-kun, don't you think it's a little unfair that you still have all your clothes still on? Ino said, her voice hoarse from the pleasure she was experiencing. Naruto reluctantly stepped away from Ino and started to remove his clothes. After a minute he was left in just his boxers. Ino took this time to marvel at Naruto's body. Holy shit, he's perfect. Ino's breath hitched as she drank in Naruto's form. She stared at his toned muscles and pecs. But when she saw the six-pack that he was sporting, she started to drool slightly. Then her eyes lowered and she spotted the massive tent in Naruto's boxers. Ino didn't need to see it to know that Naruto was packing some serious heat down below. Kami, he's a gift from above. Ino thought as she licked her lips. Ino noticed Naruto was just staring at her. She realized that she still had her skirt and mesh shorts on. Quickly she pulled those off and unwrapped her bindings. Now she stood in just a pair of purple panties that had become soaked due to their previous activities. With a deep breath she pulled those down as well. Kami, you're beautiful, Ino-chan. Naruto said in awe of her beauty. Thank you, Naruto-kun, but why don't you take those off? It's looking pretty painful. Ino said with a grin as she pointed toward his raging erection. Naruto flushed with embarrassment, but did as he was told and pulled his boxers down. Ino's jaw dropped when she saw the size of Naruto's. Kami, he must be 11 inches, how is that supposed to fit in me? I want it now. Ino thought as she looked at Naruto's. Ino walked forward and gripped Naruto's shaft and started stroking it. She then leaned in and whispered hotly into his ear. Naruto-kun, I want to skip all the foreplay, we can do that later. I need you now. Of course, my beautiful flower. Naruto said as he kissed Ino and laid her gently on the bed. He positioned himself at her entrance and looked at her. Are you sure, Ino-chan? There's no going back after this. Ino smiled up at him. Of course, Naruto-kun, now make love to me. Ino said as he wrapped her legs around his waist. Naruto gently pushed into her womanhood. Ino let out a small gasp as he entered her. She clenched her teeth as he pushed inch after inch into her. After a few moments he was fully inside of her. Ino had never felt so complete in her whole life. Naruto filled her so fully, the slightest movement caused her to moan in pleasure. After finally adjusting to his size, she nodded for him to start moving. Seeing Ino nod, Naruto slowly pulled out. Once just the tip was left in, he pushed back into her. This caused Ino to let out a loud moan. Naruto then started to take slow thrusts that filled Ino completely each time. Ino wrapped her arms around his neck, and used her legs around his waist to push him deeper into her. Naruto was getting irritated by the agonizingly slow pace, but he knew that Ino didn't want him to go all out yet. So he decided to speed up just a little bit. From Ino's increased moans and gasps, Naruto knew that he had made the right choice. Ino loved the slow pace. Naruto filled her so completely every movement. He was hitting all the right spots with every thrust. She thought it couldn't get any better, that was until Naruto sped up. This increase in speed caused Ino to have her first orgasm of the night. Holy shit! Ino yelled out as she exploded around Naruto's, her juices coating his shaft and leaking down her thigh. Naruto smiled in satisfaction as he continued to thrust into Ino. Naruto made sweet love to Ino for what seemed like hours. The whole time he would kiss and in her neck, and whisper sweet words into her ear. But he was reaching his limit, and from the sound of Ino's moans he knew she was close too. Ino-chan, I'm so close. Naruto said, panting slightly. Me too, come inside me, Naruto, I need to feel your seed inside me. Ino moaned out as Naruto picked up his pace. Are you sure, Ino-chan? If I mark you, you'll get pregnant. Please Naruto, I want this. I want to start a family with you, and the other girls. Ino said as she smiled up at him. Naruto just nodded and picked up the pace again. Ino was now moaning uncontrollably, she didn't care who heard her moans of ecstasy. The whole village could hear her for all she cared. After one particularly powerful thrust, Ino was sent over the edge and came again. She shouted out Naruto's name as she once again coated his with her juices. The feeling of Ino exploding around him sent Naruto over the edge. As he came he sunk his teeth into her neck. Ino screamed out as she felt a mix of pain and pleasure from the bite. After all his seed had filled Ino's womb, Naruto slowly pulled out. Both Ino and him were panting softly. Naruto looked as Ino's arm glowed slightly and the two red and orange bands formed on her left arm. "Welcome to the family, Ino-chan," Naruto said lovingly as he traced the lines on her arm. Ino looked at the bands and smiled. Then she placed a hand on her stomach. She turned to see Naruto looking at her lovingly. "Well, Naruto-kun, why don't we try out that foreplay now?" Ino said with devilish smile. Chapter 12. 2 hours after they had started their session, Naruto and Ino were still going at. Currently Naruto was lying on his back, while Ino was vigorously, her head bobbed up and down as she tried to take more and more of his shaft in her mouth. She could get about 9 inches down her throat before she started gagging. Naruto had his hands running through Ino's long platinum blonde hair, encouraging her to continue. He let out a throaty moan when she swirled her tongue around the tip of his shaft. Holy shit, she may not be as good as Sakura or Anko, but damn if she doesn't make up for it in enthusiasm. Naruto thought as he felt his orgasm quickly approaching. "Ino-chan, I'm gonna come." Naruto grunted out as he started to lightly thrust into Ino's mouth. She didn't respond. She just sped up her bobbing, trying to get her prize. She was rewarded when Naruto exploded into her mouth. Ino let Naruto's shaft slide out of mouth with an audible pop, and licked her lips. I love the taste of your seed. Quote. Ino said as she snuggled up to him and traced circles on his chest. Ino was enjoying Naruto's warmth and closeness. But just as she was about to nod off, she heard something that made her turn white. "Haim, are you home? I heard some noises," Inoichi Yamanaka said as he opened the door. Inoichi opened the door expecting to his daughter fussing over her appearance, or maybe reading some family scrolls. But when he opened the door and spotted his daughter, his Haim, naked, cuddling up next to an equally naked Naruto Uzumaki, he nearly passed out. Inoichi looked from his daughter to Naruto several times, trying to look only in their faces. His mind finally caught up to what he was seeing and his face turned red in anger. Ino, seeing her father's anger, quickly covered herself with the bed sheets and tried to calm the situation. "Now daddy, calm down, there's no need to get upset. No need to get upset. This man took my daughter's innocence, in my own home no less." Inoichi yelled, visibly shaking with anger. "Uzumaki, you're a dead man," Inoichi yelled as he glared daggers at Naruto. Naruto looked at Ino and silently asked if he could bolt. Ino shared his gaze and nodded. Just as Inoichi was about to throttle Naruto, he disappeared in a flash of yellow. That was Hirishin. When did that little bastard learn that? Inoichi thought as he stared at the empty spot where Naruto had just been. Inoichi turned his gaze to his daughter. She was currently staring at the floor with a massive blush on her face. "Haim, care to explain to me what the hell is going on?" Inoichi asked, anger still evident in his voice. Ino chuckled nervously as she rubbed the back of her head. "Today, Inoichi said, getting rather impatient. Ino cringed at the tone of her father's voice. She let out a sigh and looked at her father. "Is mom home too?" "Yes, she is, and she's probably wondering what the hell we're yelling about." "Well, get her and wait for me in the living room. I'll get changed and be down in a minute. I have something really important to tell you both." Inoichi gave his daughter a questioning look before he nodded and left the room. Ino took her time getting dressed, as she didn't really want to deal with this now. But she knew it was best to just get this over with. She quickly descended the stairs and spotted her parents sitting on the couch waiting for her. Her father still had a pissed off expression on his face, while her mother looked oblivious to the situation. Taking a deep breath, Ino walked into the living room, and sat in a seat across from her parents. She placed her hand over her mate Mark, trying to hide it. "Ino, care to explain to me why your father was yelling earlier?" "Yes, Ino, explain to your mother why I was so upset." Ino took a deep breath and decided to just rip the band-aid right off. "I had with Naruto Uzumaki," Ino said in a low voice, as she tried to avoid their gaze. Ino's mother went wide-eyed when she heard this. "Care to repeat that? I don't think I heard you right, honey." "I said I had with Naruto," she said a little louder this time. That's what I thought you said," Ino's mother said with a sigh. Ino was surprised that her mother didn't seem upset. "I have one question to ask you, young lady." "Yes, mother," Ino asked with her head down. "Do you love him?" When Ino heard this, her head shot up, and she saw her mother smiling at her. "Hi, I do love him," Ino said with complete sincerity. And this proves it. Ino finished by removing her hand to show her mate mark. Ino, what is that? Kunoichi asked, his eyes narrowing. This daddy is mate mark. That's the end of part 2. Naruto